Ladies, bring your chairs up close. We're going to have an intimate conversation here. I have some questions that I want you to give answers to. All of you. Bring your chair. You can sit on the floor. Whatever floats your boat. But I would like for you guys to come up and have a conversation.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't be scared. Look, there's some spots right here, some spots right there. Don't bite. Sometimes. That part.
So, I'm going to hand the mic over, and I am going to let these ladies give a 5-minute introduction to who they are, whatever it is they want to tell you. I'll be in the back going. Okay? So they're going to give a 5-minute introduction, and then I'm going to ask them some random questions. So I want you to hear these conversations because, like I said, growing up, I didn't feel like I had those people in my life that I needed. And I think the biggest thing that I think about now is like, how would my life have been different if I had those people? If I would have had those people that said, don't do that. Even Lana's story about where she left the party and didn't even nobody check on her. You know, like, what if I would have been surrounded by the right people? And it's not to say that we're not meant to go through challenges, but think about things that we do, and you guys can all sit here and say, not me, because your moms are in the room. But the reality is that we know, we were teenagers once. We know what happens at parties. We know what happens when you fall head over heels over a bully. We know because we've been there. And even though all of our stories are different, we've all been there. Somehow. So, I'm going to give the microphone over to them, let them introduce themselves. I'm going to introduce who they are, but how many of you guys know my kid? Tito. Okay. That's his barber right there. Lady Curls is not just a baddie. She is a barber by day. She's a baddie barber. She is standing out in a male-dominated industry. She has 600,000 followers on Instagram, something like that. TikTok. Some of you guys may remember her from when we did the video over there at Wildwood Park. I think the biggest thing for me is like when I see the kids that are around my son's age, I feel like I'm watching all you guys grow up. So I've seen this young lady, she's also a mom. I've seen her grow up too. And this year she's been on a journey, which is why I picked her for this panel. Because sometimes like when we're talking, you guys think, oh, they're old people, they don't know nothing. So I felt, okay, well, I'll bring some new people. But please give it up for Lady Curls. Nancy told you who she was, and I totally love that because that's how I feel. Especially on this journey that I've been trying to find my grandmother. I feel like I was born and raised here, but I don't know who I am. Because I know that my identity is where I come from, but I don't know who that is. So I feel like I'm not here and I'm not there. So I feel like, to me, that resonates, and that was why I was like, oh, she's perfect for this panel. Erica has her own story of her own too, and I've watched her journey this year. And so I feel like that's just it. When we were doing the soul searching, like, I've seen a lot, maybe not so much the girls, but I've seen a lot of these women go through their journey in the last year. So when you're holding hands and you're soul searching, that's what you feel. You feel that journey. You feel that energy of like, man, they just went through it and they're sitting here smiling. So that is why I asked these three ladies here. I'm going to hand the mic over to them, give them 5 minutes each, and then I'm going to ask them these random questions. Ooh.
I would go first. I already talked a lot about who I was, but the first time that reached out to me, I was at the gym actually when I told her yeah, let's talk, and I was actually looking at myself in the mirror the whole time I was talking to her, and I told her this, and I was like, is this too much to share? I don't know. You gotta let me know the limits, right? I actually met Simply Destiny because I was on the other side of the building. If you guys ever, I don't know why you would open the door, but the door on the other side is this organization called Wilderness Stock. They do arts and crafts in the community. I'm sure if you come here, you find house heard of what this before. But when I heard of Simply Destiny, it resonated. I think the soul searching did it. I don't know how you went, where she is. Oh, there she is. This year has been really rough. And I think it's a year of reflection for me, more than anything. I don't know if this is working. I can't hear it. But I'm 30 years old, 30 years young. I am also a single mom. And most of my life I've looked for that love that everyone always talks about because it's amazing, right? That feeling, love, oh, it's great. But it hurts too. And I think this is something that for y'all that are younger, I wish someone would have told kids, right? Even if you feel like this is the life that I want, you can always change your mind, right? Consent. I know in a lot of ways you hear about that in sexual relationships, right? But that can be anything, right? If you don't want to be a friend, if you don't want it, it's never too late to say no. And that's life decisions too. If you're in your third year of college, if that's what you decide to do, you can always say, never mind, I changed my mind, right? You can always reset. And I'm resetting, I lost count, I think third time. So I'm back at my parents' house for now, but that's okay, we joked about this, it's not a joke, I'm a mental health professional, I'm a therapist, but I had an unsuccessful suicide attempt. And it sounds weird, but I'm glad that it was unsuccessful, right? But people, I know someone said this before, right? You might look like everything's going perfect, and behind the scenes, right? You don't know what someone's going through. So even if it's someone on the street asking for great change, that eye-to-eye contact can be everything for us, right? Your bagger at the grocery store, a simple smile, right? That can really, really change or make someone's day. So that's not who I am, but it is, but I'm using my 5 minutes.
You got 30 minutes.
I got this one. What else should I talk about? Okay, so I kind of wrote something up before, and I didn't even say it earlier, and I was like, oh, yeah, that would be nice to bring up. But I grew up, I'm the second oldest of 5, but I felt in a lot of ways I was like the older child, because I always I gave my parents the gray hairs, right? I stressed them out. But it's funny, right? I don't know if you guys are our oldest daughters, but it's hard being the model, right? Everyone's like, oh, be like your sister. Why don't you do this like your sister? Or your cousins or family or other family friends. You're always trying to compare you to someone else. And it sucks. It's like living in someone else's shadow. It's really, it's hard. No one talks about it. The needed expression, that phrase of me that yeah, it resonates so much to individuals who, their parents, there's this generational gap in knowledge. It could be cultural, it could be technology. I am a therapist, right? So a lot of times I'm working with the parents, teaching the parents how to monitor their child's, access to Snapchat. I don't know if you guys have privacy settings, right? Right, yeah. But so many parents don't even know what that is, right? Screen time limits. I'm glad that you guys are here. It's hard. Technology. TikTok. I know. I'm no hate. I'm sorry. At all. But TikTok is addicting, right? You're there, and it's that dopamine hit. You see a video, it's funny for 30 seconds. That's as long as it takes for you to be like, ooh, and then I want another one. I want another one. next thing you know, it's like 2 hours. And I do scroll. I'm not perfect. I do scroll too. But it's hard to build yourself up when you're constantly comparing yourself to that person who has 20,000 followers, right? You want to do what they do. So it's hard, but it's worth it. And I'm glad that you guys are building your community here because that's something I never had. So with that, like, not just the community you're building, but like elevating yourself as you continue to grow, go to school, like connect, have coffee dates, not drink dates, right? Coffee dates. If you're from Aurora, Dapper Brews at my friend's meeting shop. All these, like, if you have a business, like your friends should be the ones to support you, and if they don't, are they really your friends, right? That's what the consent comes in. Maybe no, maybe not anymore. That's it, yeah, okay.
So I'm Nancy Martinez, as they mentioned, founder of Vida Jardín. I am the eldest of 3 sisters, no brothers. I always wanted an older brother, and instead I got my son, who is going to be 7 years old and keeps me on my toes. I won't say how old exactly I am, but I am a millennial, and although I am in my late 30s, I still, in so many ways, feel like that 12-year-old girl, that 16-year-old girl, that 18-year-old girl, that 21-year-old, that 25-year-old, and I'm gonna stop there. Because I'm still nourishing parts of that girl. And for me, being invited here by Liza and Erica, mentioning me, again, you want your friends to be mentioning you in rooms where you are not, right? She mentioned me to Liza and I met them. It's such an honor because, like as she mentioned, I wish that there was someone that looked like me in so many spaces. There was even, we joke around curly hair, right? But I literally had, when I was in my 20s in corporate America, someone told me that curly hair wasn't professional. And I didn't know what to say, how to respond, because, oh, okay, my parents weren't professional, or white collar, as they like to call it. And so I didn't know. I didn't have anyone. I wish I would have had people like Erica and Liza and this curly hair here, to be able to say like, hey, this is what was said about my hair. What do I say, right? And so one of the things I always say is, again, have people around you, not only that look like you, but also that don't look like you, right? Because that's the whole thing. One of the things that's it's hard, especially when we live in our cultures, is sometimes we want to stay in our bubbles. And that's been my journey, is to get out of that bubble so that I can also be in other spaces and bring along my friends and my family for that journey. And Mibe is actually a little bit of a love letter to them and to my culture of having that space. Again, it's all about just standing in that space, even when you are uncomfortable. I know it's going to obviously consent and all that stuff, but in some rooms, you are going to feel comfortable because people don't look like you, but that doesn't mean that you don't belong. And that's really what my journey has been. And trust me, guys, there's times where I go into places and I'm like, why am I here? And I do the thing with the shoulders, like you said earlier, but then I start realizing, no, I belong here. So I hope that, you guys get to see that a little bit here with me, and if not, you guys are always welcome to visit me. And then hopefully I'll see more of you guys in more of these types of events. It. I don't have more, but
Okay, it's my turn.
Hi everybody, my name is Yesenia. I go by Lady Curls on, every social media platform anyways. I do have something to say, especially when it comes down to social media, because I know that's one thing that as a teenager or as a young lady, young woman, we look at these other girls and we try to become them, but in reality, we have to be more of ourselves to introduce to the world who we really are in our hearts. We can't be everybody else. We can't be that other girl. We could be ourselves though. We could show the world who we really are in our heads, what we think in our minds, what we feel in our hearts, what we think. So I feel like that's one thing, as a young woman growing up, I feel like I was never taught this. I'm 31. I got 2 boys. I was just going with the flow, especially because I only started social media as a business aspect. I was like, oh, this is gonna run up my numbers when it comes down to, getting my clientele up or finding new people to, cut their hair and things like that. So first it was a business aspect. Then it was, oh, I could be myself and show the world who I really am because I could connect with this person, so yes. So I am Yesenia, I am a barber, I am a mother, and social media is not reality.
Thank you.
It's not. You gotta make sure that you click the button off and come to life because we are all humans at the end of the day. We cannot get stuck in this little black hole of internet and think that this is what my life is. Because in reality, this is your life right here, right now. No phones, connecting with other humans and being surrounded by women. And, when you go home with people that your siblings, your cousins, your family, that's what life is really about. And I think when we flick that switch, we need to make sure that we know the difference, right? So I don't want you girls growing up and getting caught up in the numbers and the comments and thinking that you're validated because of the likes. You're not. You're validated because of your mind. You're validated because of what you have and what you inspire to be and become, You have your dreams, you have your goals, you have your hobbies, you have your friends. Make sure that you don't lose somebody that's really, really genuine because of numbers. It's not because of that. Defend your person, defend your people, protect them. And it's gonna be hard, sometimes you're gonna be stuck in this little crowd that tells you, oh, you should do this. And it's, in your heart that it's not right. But I think eventually when you get old enough to realize, hey, maybe I should have done the right thing. So now it's in your head to be like, okay, I'm not going to be scared to defend this person. Stop the bullying. We're all going to get bullied. I was bullied, believe it or not. I had pimples all over my face. I didn't have a body. I didn't have the, I wanted it, but I'm not gonna lie, but it wasn't something that brought me happiness because I was always trying to be better. I was always trying to be perfect, but I was already perfect. I just didn't see it, So, yes, be you, genuinely you.
All right, so you can opt to answer the question. You can pass the microphone around.
Okay.
Take your turn, whatever you want to do. So my first question is, take us back. What were you like at 11, 13, or 16 years old? What was life like for you then, and what do you wish someone had told you at that age?
All right, well, I guess I have a little microphone. So, I'm going to go with 11, and she did mention something about bullying. So, I was bullied horribly in middle school. Anyone that has been through middle school, which I'm hoping everyone, right? If you haven't, I'm sorry. But yes, middle school. And it was definitely, I wish someone that someone had not only talked to me that, hey, it's not you, right? Hurt people, right? I didn't know that. I just kept going home and telling my mom, why do they do this to me? And I'm talking about when they were bullying me, I was in the lunchroom. First of all, I couldn't eat in the lunchroom for about 2 weeks, because there was food being thrown at me, and it was the entire cafeteria. It wasn't just a group. So it was very hard for me. But I would go home and I would tell my mom, why are they doing this to me? And she did the best she could. And sometimes that's all our parents can offer. And I wish that there had been someone not just for me, but for her. Because I'm sure it was so hard for her to come and talk to me about this because it was hurting her too. So I wish someone would have said, you know what, Mija, hurt people are hurt people. That was not something that they told me. They were just saying, oh, no les hagas caso, don't pay attention to them, just ignore them. But I wish someone would have told me, it's really not you. It's a reflection that they're seeing in themselves, right? And I know that that's hard to hear when you're that young, but I wish someone would have just said it to me. And just an update, I am now, one of my best friends is my 6th grade bully. Yeah, so life, kept going on, and, eventually, in high school, I got to talk to her, and I said, why did you do that? And she said, I was just going through stuff at home, and I didn't know who else to take it out, and you were just easy, and she said, but I was really happy that you always took the high road because it made me admire you. And now, like I said, we're really good friends. Her and I, she's one of my best friends. So.
You want to go?
What?
You can skip because we have other questions.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
She said, yeah. What was the question? So it says, take us back. What were you like at 11, 13, or 16? What was life like for you then? And what do you wish someone had told you at that age?
Wow. So, growing up, really, I was a dreamer. I was always in my notebooks, just writing and journaling and I was in my imagination so much that time flew by because that was like my coping mechanism from being bullied. So I was literally creating my own world in order to, I guess the word you can say, survive, because teenage years is not easy. So I wish somebody would have told me, like, these times are going to pass. It's not going to be easy, but eventually one day you're going to grow up and you're going to become great. There you go.
All right, next question. All right, next question. What was a moment in your life that made you feel like giving up, or what kept you going?
I talked about a moment in my life earlier, so I can elaborate a little bit on that. I was married to someone who I really obviously loved at the time. I had a really nice life, I think. I think it was everything I always wanted. I had a really cute dog. I still have him. He's 9 now. He was a Polski, if you guys know. He was like a little husky, tiny thing. Not tiny, he's 25 pounds, a little overweight too, but really cute. And I've always wanted a dog. That's like why I'm going into that. That's my first dog, right? My childhood, always wanted a pet. And I realized that I didn't, everything that I was working for, which is why I said what I said earlier, it wasn't enough. It didn't fill the void, right? I filled the void that I always like wanted to be really happy, really, I was searching for a love that I didn't have for myself. And I say this a lot with teenagers, like, you gotta love yourself more than you love anyone else in this world. Yes. And I don't know what it clicked in that specific day, but I remember just like, I went to school, I got my bachelor's in applied psychology and sociology. Not a great decision financially. I got paid $13 an hour, which now probably sounds like nothing, but then I was like, oh my god, I got $13 an hour, like this is great. It wasn't. But I was like, first job after graduating, it was a big step. No one in my family has ever graduated college, so I was the first, and that was so incredible, like to be able to accomplish that. But it wasn't enough, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't have anyone. And yeah, I mean that moment clicked, and I decided to get my master's. I decided to really just pour into the life that I wanted to create, and I didn't see anyone else doing the life that I wanted, so it was really hard. I feel like that moment, well, later than that, I realized that like no one's gonna do the work for you, no one, right? And if you don't know, we have Google, right? We all have a cell phone. we can Google anything, and that's what it was. I researched. I remember the reason why I wanted to be a social worker was the SVU episode that was actually really, really morbid. Like social worker actually died. And I was like, how are you mad? It was really morbid, but I was like, wow, they're helping people though, right? And that's what this. I feel like social worker is not just my title professionally, but like just as a human being, I do that a lot. But that, I mean, you can always restart. You can always change your mind, and that's the biggest silver lining, I guess. I was able to follow my dreams, and yeah, I'm still finding all those dreams. I don't have everything done, but that's okay. And I don't know what's next. That's okay, and I'm okay with that. All right.
Or you want to take it and then we'll go to the next question. Question: what was a moment in your life that made you feel like giving up, and what kept you going?
Okay, back to the relationship status.
Right.
So, I feel like there's a cycle when it comes down to choosing the wrong partner. So, you just gotta be very aware. One thing that I really do gotta say before I start with my story. Be careful who you choose. Just because you lay with them does not mean that they will stay. Does not mean that they love you. And I wish somebody would have told me this growing up. It's hard, right? It's hard. You have created a whole family with somebody just for them to not live the fantasy that you've seen all over Disney and, you know, all over all these movies. They make it seem like, oh, once you have a child with somebody, you're going to stay with them forever. But that's not the case. You gotta be careful, you gotta be mindful, you gotta make sure that this man is actually a real man, a provider, a guide, you know, to make sure that you grow as a human, as a person, as a woman, for who you want your child to grow up to be. And sometimes we make that mistake and choosing the wrong person. And then we tend to have like a little setback. And we have to relearn and regrow and relearn and regrow. So my part was choosing the wrong person, you know? And it attacked me mentally, physically, emotionally, and every type of way, where I didn't know how to cope with myself, with my thoughts, and I was literally in darkness. In the clouds, you know how they mentioned the gray clouds? I was in a gray cloud for years, and I didn't know how to get out of it. So in order to fill that void, you know, I turned into substances that I shouldn't have been, you know, turning into. Instead of turning to God, I turned to alcohol. Instead of turning to God, I turned to drugs. Instead of turning to God, I turned to having sex. And that's not the case. I lost myself, and it wasn't like I was out there, you know. I'm just saying, don't do that. But at the same time, we got to be careful who we give our hearts to. Our hearts is our souls, they're our spirits. You know, we gotta protect that. Because I kid you not, half the things that we go through as women, a man is probably not gonna be able to handle. They won't. Half the things that we go through, emotionally, physically, mentally, we're stronger. We're strong as a woman. We are. We can't let our guard down. We protect your home.
So many of our girls are still trying to figure out who they are. What helped you discover your purpose, and how did you know you were on the right path?
Alright, so, first of all, to be honest, I'm still discovering who I am, and I feel like it's a lifelong thing. Just when you think you discovered yourself in one form, you're like, oh, you know what? Let me reinvent myself. So, yeah, I mean, I will say the same thing like they said. When I graduated high school, I became a licensed cosmetologist. I then worked after that in telecommunications. I went from makeup to telecommunications. I don't know. You guys don't know what that is because that back then we had phones that actually had to be wired. So yes, I worked in telecommunications and then I went back to makeup. So it doesn't mean just because you are like, oh, this is who I am. There's going to be an essence about you. And one thing that if you guys don't have this resource, I can send it over to you. But there is a values list, and there's like a thing where you can kind of pick the 20 most words that are your values, right? And then you kind of dwindle it down to that. And I've done that probably like 5 times since I started doing it, and it was from like teenage till now. And I'm telling you, those values they change as you grow. And it's okay. It's gonna be okay. Like just as you and those hardships are gonna also give you a new perspective in life. The biggest one that I tell people, once I became a mother, that girl that back then, the childless Nancy, she's gone. I don't know what happened to her. But now that I have a kid, I'm a different person. And that's gonna happen. It's gonna continue to happen in your lives. And you have to embrace it. Because that means you're growing, just like our plants, they get bigger, they get beautiful, they flower, they do all these other things, right?
You want the next question? Sure. Okay. Sometimes healing looks like letting go. What did you have to leave behind to protect your peace or grow into your next season?
I skipped the question earlier of like who you were at 11 years old because I genuinely, this is true to the core. I am not the same person that people from public school remember. And I still connect. I'm from Aurora. I live here, work here. Like, it's a small town, right? You guys, like, we think East Side, West Side. I think earlier, it is such a small town. Being the second largest city in the state of Illinois, just saying, right? But it's everything. Like we talked about values, like, and I do this as a therapist. Like, what do you value? You value honesty. Are you honest? Like, you can't like say you value this and do something else that's the opposite. So it's constant like making sure that what I believe and what I align. I believe, Black Lives Matter. I believe that no one is illegal on stolen land. I believe in all these things, and so I have to make sure that everything I do aligns with this, right? Like I have lost a lot of things. I literally have a shed right now, storage unit with all my belongings because I'm starting over, and that was not an easy decision. So everything, and it's so scary, but I am living proof that it's okay. Right? There's no shame in asking for help. But yeah, I think, I'm sorry, that was not a really simple answer to that, but.
Candid conversation.
All right.
Oh, question again? Sometimes healing looks like letting go. What did you have to leave behind to protect your peace or grow into your next season?
Is that the same question? Yes.
So I had to unlearn a lot of things that I learned growing up. There's so many things that you're taught in the wrong way. And then you grow up and you're like, wait, why was I taught this way? So I had to let go of things that I was taught in order for myself to reteach myself things that would be more appropriate to the way that I was evolving, the way that I was becoming, the woman that I was, my future was going to become, So I had to unlearn a lot of things, so I had to let go of that.
I have one that I'm still working on, but it's the people pleasing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Yeah, the people pleasing, especially, and I will say this, coming from very, our cultures, we tend to do it with our parents. And, we love them, and yes, we want them, we want them to be proud of us, but we also have to live our lives, and I mean that in a safe, healthy way, right? But the people pleasing, that has to go out the window.
Can you explain what people pleasing is to some of the younger folks who don't I think I just figured out that as a
moment that if we don't want to go to a family event, we're not going to go. But sometimes that guilt, that obligation, that responsibility makes you think, oh, I should probably go. Even though you may not be in the mental health space for it, or even physically, like sometimes you're just drained from the day, and you're like, why am I going to go somewhere where, whether it's a party or whatever, when I just don't have the energy? Again, that's that people pleasing. You're putting someone else's feelings before your own feelings, right? And it could feel like guilt, responsibility, obligation, all of those things.
It could be like, you know, like if your sister or something, they want to buy your clothes, but you don't want them to buy your clothes.
You know what I'm saying? That's what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you don't want to, but
My sister didn't hear. I was just looking at her.
All right, our final one. If you could pour one word of encouragement or truth into every girl sitting here today, what would it be?
Start rattling them off. Why
Love yourself.
believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe in yourself, believe in yourself. Believe.
I think this one was with it. Confidence. Confidence. Walk in, like I said, walk in that room, like all of us are behind you because we all.
Yes.
Pretty hard, right? I think we are in a hustle culture. I talked to someone yesterday about the term girl boss. Oh, I hate that. I hate that. We're bosses, not girl bosses, like just boss. But there's this, I think it's in a patriarch society, women are bred almost to be this like, well, someone who is a people pleaser, right? I think women have this obligation almost as, I think we're moving as a culture, thankfully, hopefully y'all feel that, but your mom maybe, or your grandmother, like, oh, just don't talk back, right? Like, all of these things that are expected of us, that we're so like on the go all the time, and we need a rest, and don't feel bad about it, right? Don't have that guilt when you are resting, because you need that. Sometimes you do need that pause. Also, I am from Aurora, and we talk about mentorship, and I can do that. I'm a resource for anyone if anyone wants to let me come in your space, let you know kind of conversation. I know sometimes y'all are a little farther. Yeah.
All right, give it up for the ladies, please. Make some noise, I'm so sorry. All right. Thank you, ladies, for being candid with us. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and I'll tell you why. We're going to try to clear this place out a little bit because we're about to move. But before we do that, before you girls get up, hold on. Inez and Avi, can you guys come up here for me, please? All right. So some of you guys know that I took some time off this year from the studio, and I've been working on my own things. And I don't know if it's on the shirt though. No, it's not. So it says on the flyer, it said Project 510. So the reason that I took some time off, they were talking about recharge and all these other things. I just